Hello, Con. Good to
Hey,
see
Jim.
you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Welcome.
Thank
and
you. Thanks
welcome
for
to
having me.
our podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The first of our podcasts. The
First of many.
first of many, by the grace of God. Yes.
Wonderful.
Um, apologies for any glitches that might happen, but by the grace of God, we'll get through
Yeah.
it with no
We can
problems.
we can edit it nicely,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. So introduce yourself.
Well, my name's Con, and for those who don't know me, I'm a medical doctor by background. And sometimes people might say, well, all right, medicine's your field. Why are you talking about this? Well, my medical practice is a little bit different. I actually do medico-legal medicine, which means I see people who get for injuries and I have to prepare reports. All of my reports might be, not all of them are, but they all possibly could be seen by judges or courts, which means that the reports have to be very precisely worded. And I have to be careful in what claims I make and what claims I don't make. And I have to look at evidence, which means I understand evidence a lot better than a lot of other people might. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I have done, medico-legal medicine. So I like to look at evidence.
Yeah. And that leads me to, what are we talking about today?
Well, today, what we're going to look at is how can we evaluate whether Islam is true? That's the question. Islam, it's the second biggest religion in the world, right? But the valid question, is it true? So we're going to evaluate that.
So what is truth? What is truth to you?
Okay, that's a very good question. Because I've said evaluate whether it's true. To me, before I answer that question, I have to explain how we, how I have to explain something called worldview, because you can't answer a question sometimes without context, right? So worldview is something we all have. All of us have a worldview, whether we think we do or we don't. A worldview is the way we look at the world, the physical surroundings, our world, and it's a bit like a set of lenses, spectacles that we use to look and see how we make sense of what's going on around us. For example, one worldview is a theistic worldview, which says that, okay, there is a God behind this creation. Another worldview is an atheistic worldview, which says that everything is just random chance and we're all just molecules in motion. Okay, so everybody has a worldview, whether they like it or not, right? Now, Christianity is one kind of worldview. It's a kind of theistic worldview. We also have what's called pantheistic worldviews, like Hinduism, where just the whole creation is God, right? So, to me, truth is where your worldview best explains what we can measure about the world. We can use our five senses to get information about the world, and we can use machines and science as extension of our five senses to get that information. We then look at, okay, what best explains it? Right? That explanation that best explains the evidence, that's truth. To me, a valid worldview is something that best explains the reality that we see. And importantly, if worldviews make truth claims, they can't all be true at the same time. Right? For example, Christianity says that Jesus is God. Islam says he's a prophet. Atheism says he's just a good teacher and he's just nobody special. They can't all be true. One of them's true. I mean, we could be wrong as Christians, right? But he can't be a prophet and God at the same time. Does that make sense?
One of them could be true, or none of them could be true.
That's right, but they can't all be true.
Correct.
That's exactly right.
So what do you believe is true?
As I alluded to that, in that I think that the truth is what best explains what we see. And I think that a theistic worldview, specifically the Christian worldview, best explains the truth. And we won't go into detail in this podcast about that. We can do another podcast if you want on that. But the reason why I believe it explains the truth is because look around you. There's a world. There's a physical reality. And we know that things don't cause themselves. All right? They just don't pop into existence.
Everything did not come from nothing.
That's right. So that means that if there's a creation, there has to be a creator. We also know that this creation, this universe, is so precisely designed for human life. They call it the anthropic principle, right? So design means there's a designer. And, to get around the design, the atheists have even had to postulate crazy ideas like a multiverse, right? But the fact is it's designed, all right? And also, we know that information is a reality. There's information in all of us.
Yeah.
DNA is information.
Yeah.
The only recognized cause for information that we can see, that we've ever seen, is an intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're in IT. The
Yes.
codes write themselves?
No.
No. So we've all got a code inside us. Somebody had to write that code. That's a theistic worldview. So that's why I think that Christianity is the truth.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And what led you to study Islam? What got you into that?
It's a bit of a long story, and I hope you'll indulge me.
Yes.
I'll try and keep it as short as possible. But I didn't become a Christian. I mean, the statement I gave before that I believe Christianity is true. I don't want people to think that that's because I grew up in a Christian home, you know, or that I was just force-fed. I'm just regurgitating what my parents taught me. No, I wasn't a Christian. I didn't become a Christian until I was about 37, 35, 36, 37, right? And I became a Christian because I looked at the information. I was challenged to look at information. I was challenged to look at the evidence. And I decided that the best explanation for the evidence was that Christianity was true.
Yeah.
Right? Just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Here's the evidence. Here are the facts. What's the best explanation? That Christianity is true. And I became very interested in learning more about that, and the discipline that the name that's given to that process or that discipline is apologetics.
Yeah.
Apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia, which just means defending the evidence for why you believe what you believe.
Yeah.
Everybody has apologetics because we all believe something, and whenever someone gives you a reason for what they believe, that's apologetics.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're Greek as well. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I became interested in studying apologetics, and initially it was because I thought I wanted to refute atheism and humanism and the Richard Dawkinses of the world and all that. And along the way, I began to study the history of Christianity because I've always been interested in history. You know, from my favorite subject at school, especially, was ancient history. You know, the Greeks, the Mycenaeans, the Persian Wars, loved all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I spent about 10 years initially doing stuff to refute atheism and teaching people, youth. I've taught overseas. I've taught in the South Pacific. I've taught in India on that kind of apologetics.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, I found myself listening to a podcast by, in my opinion, one of the best apologists going around, Frank Turek.
Yeah.
If anyone, shout out to Frank, big free plug for his Cross-Examine channel.
Yeah.
Go and check it out.
He's a good man. Yeah.
He is a good man. And he interviewed a man named David Wood, another good guy.
Yeah.
Right? David Wood, I guess, rose to prominence through the book Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, where with Nabil Qureshi, that's right. And David Wood challenged, he was friends with Nabil at university, challenged him to, is he willing to follow the evidence where it leads?
Yeah.
Right. Now, you hear David Wood's story, okay, where he was actually an atheist and then went into prison, was confronted by a Christian, and then that's another, he through a series of intellectual confrontations, because David Wood's that sort of guy, he ended up becoming a Christian. Right? And then after Nabil became a Christian, David was like, can I be done with the Lord, with Islam now, Lord? Because me and David are very similar in that I actually find the sort of atheistic stuff more interesting. Like David Wood's his PhD is in the problem of evil, right? Now, to me, that's very intellectually and philosophically interesting.
Yeah.
I was never interested in Islam, right?
Yeah.
But David then said that he noticed that there were 2 billion Muslims, and not many people were confronting Islam, right? And I started to ask myself, why is that? And I don't know, Jimmy, if you've ever had the experience where the Holy Spirit speaks to you.
Yeah.
And it was...
Got a nudge.
I got a nudge, and it was like... And I realized because a lot of Christians are scared.
Yeah.
Because you start confronting Islam, then it's different to confronting a humanist, right?
Yeah.
You're picking a fight almost, right?
Yeah.
So it was like the Holy Spirit said, are you going to be a chicken or not? And I'm like, well, I couldn't. And so, and he said, I love these. There are 2 billion Muslims and I love them.
Yes.
And I want you to bring them to me.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So that's how I started getting interested in Islam.
Islam,
and,
yeah.
and as David said, that ex-Muslims make really, really cool Christians
Yeah.
because they have to turn their back on sometimes their entire family if they leave Islam.
Yeah, it's a big cost.
It is a big cost, which means that they really do love Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to work with people who are willing to fight for what they believe,
Yeah.
not people who wanted to be wishy-washy.
Yes.
So that's how I got to study Islam.
All right. So what approach have you taken to examine whether Islam is true?
Well, again, to answer that question, I need to give context, right? There are basically two approaches you can use to examine any worldview, really. You can look at internally what's inside the worldview and see whether that's coherent or whether it contradicts itself, because any worldview that contradicts itself isn't coherent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or you can look at externally
Yeah.
what the information or the evidence outside the worldview says, and to see whether that's contradicts the worldview. So, for example, if we were looking at Christianity, we could look at the Bible. Just look at the Bible itself and see whether there are any contradictions inside the Bible, the whole Bible, not just cherry picking bits and pieces. So that would be an internal critique.
Yep.
Okay, or we could look at is the Bible consistent with science? Does the Bible say that the Earth is flat, for example?
Yeah.
Okay, properly understood, does it say something that can be refuted by external evidence? That's an external critique.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can do the same thing with Islam. You can look at internally, what does the Quran say, for example, and does it make sense, and is it contradictory?
Yeah.
Or you can look at the Islamic sources. What do they say about the conduct of Muhammad? Was Muhammad, Islam says that Muhammad was the exemplar and almost the perfect human being, and he's the model for all mankind. Well, is that the kind of model we want to follow? And that's one way, right?
Yeah.
That's the approach that David Wood and others have taken. Now, my problem with that approach, two problems. Number one, I've never found it helpful to start going after the character of Muhammad. Okay, because Muslims have a very deep respect and appreciation for Muhammad, right? And as we'll see in our podcast in future, I think the Muhammad of Islam never existed. But putting that aside, the Muslim is, it's very dear to the Muslim's heart. To go and then confront and cast aspersions on his proclivities or his conduct or whatever, it's almost like you're putting up a wall before we even begin.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me, Jim, is that likely to build a bridge?
No.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. So that's the first problem. The other problem I have is especially with the Quran, is I'm not a native Arabic speaker, and we have English translations. But the Muslim, in my experience, will say that, but you can't appreciate the Quran. You've got to read it in its Arabic.
Yeah.
Because they believe that the Quran is a replica of tablets in heaven that are written in Arabic.
Yeah.
Right? And so I didn't really think I had the time or the ability to spend 5 or 10 years learning classical Arabic to the level where I could compete.
Yeah.
So then I looked and I thought, I started finding evidence or information about the history behind Islam, a historical critique.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought, I can do this because it fits in with what I've been doing before with the history of Christianity. It fits in with my high school studies on ancient history.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a native Arabic speaker. Anybody can do the historical critique, number one. You just have to study the evidence. The other beauty of the historical critique is, let me ask you this, Jim. Okay, for me to say that, Muhammad never existed. The Muhammad of Islam never existed. Or if I say that Mecca wasn't the holy city of the Arabs in the 7th century, have I said something hateful?
No.
No.
Sounds factual.
It's factual. It's neutral.
Yeah.
It's emotionally neutral.
It's a truth claim.
It's a truth claim, but it's an emotionally neutral truth claim. It's not, but for me to say that, Muhammad had X number of wives and they were X age, that is a bit more emotive, isn't it? Right? Yeah. So I just found it was neutral, and with all the hate speech laws and all, we know that hate speech laws are becoming more of a problem in the Western world.
Yeah.
I found this was my best way around it. because as we'll see later, if the Islamic narrative isn't true, it doesn't matter whether Muhammad was a good person or a bad person.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, so that's why I've taken this approach.
All right. Yeah, so for most people, the theology of Quran is more important to Muslims, than historical information. Yeah, and we talked about that.
So you're asking me why do I?
Yeah.
Why am I not looking at the theology?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a simple explanation for that. All right, because let's look at the theological claims of the Quran.
Yeah.
Okay, or what they claim. Now, do you know what they claim in a nutshell?
Yeah, you tell me.
Okay.
I know a few things.
A few things.
I've read a few things.
You've read a few things. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, well, I'll summarize the Islamic
Yes.
narrative claims very simply.
Yeah.
Okay, a man named Muhammad received a revelation called the Quran from AD 610 to 632
Yeah.
in Mecca and Medina.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay, what have we got here? We've got a certain person
Yeah.
doing a certain thing or receiving a certain thing
Yeah.
at a certain time in a certain place. Now, is that or is that not a historical claim?
Yeah. It's a historical claim. Yeah.
It's claiming that certain things happened in history.
In history. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if those things didn't happen, then
Doesn't
is the
matter.
theology doesn't matter?
Yeah. What's in the book doesn't matter.
That's right. What's in the book doesn't matter. Okay. And that's why I say to people, the theology is secondary to the history. I remember talking, and I hope you'll indulge me. I'll tell the story about. I had an interaction with a Muslim a few weeks ago, and he was one of these guys doing Muslim apologetics.
Yeah.
And hopefully, in future podcasts, I can elaborate how it went.
Yeah.
But let's just say that he had no real answer to the historical critiques that I gave him, and he tried to talk about the miracles in the Quran and all these sorts of things, and I showed how those miracles weren't real miracles, and that the Quran wasn't the first. For example, he tried to say that the Quran is the first to say that the earth was round, and I showed him that the ancient Greeks showed that the earth was round, 800 years before Muhammad, and that and then the good thing about that interaction was I got both him and his mates to realize that no, it's the history that's important.
Yeah.
Because they're saying that a certain thing happened. Why were the claims in the Quran so miraculous in their eyes? Because Muhammad was a Bedouin living in Arabia and he was illiterate. Right? Is that or is that not a historical claim?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's making a historical claim about a person that was illiterate in Arabia in the 7th century that couldn't have known all these things. Therefore, the fact that he wrote them in the Quran, it's a miracle. You see, so we get back to the history whichever way we want to go, right?
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, and this hopefully this word picture or this metaphor will help people understand.
Yeah.
Jim, you like Star Wars, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. I love Star Wars.
You love Star Wars? Okay. What do you think of Darth Vader?
Yeah, he started off good according to the movie and the books, and he became bad. And
You think he was a bad guy?
I think how you ended up is he was bad.
What if I said, well, he was just misunderstood?
Yeah, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But let me ask. Okay. But does any of it matter? I mean, whether I'm right or whether you're right, does it matter?
It doesn't. It's fiction. So
absolutely, that's it. It's fiction.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, if there really was a galaxy far, far away, and there really was a Darth Vader, who possibly could be a bad guy, possibly readying an invasion of our planet, then it does matter, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
But the fact that it's fiction means it doesn't matter.
Yeah. We still enjoy it for what it is.
Yes.
But
it doesn't change our lives. It doesn't affect our destiny. It doesn't affect. We don't change the way we live our lives. We don't change the way we act and our morality based on whether
it's entertainment.
It's entertainment. Very good, fantastic. And that's my point. My point is that if we can't show that whatever Islam claims is historical, at the end of the day, it's just fiction.
Yeah.
And I don't have to accept any of the theological claims if they can't establish the historical claims.
Yeah.
Now, before we finish up,
Yeah.
I want to highlight the difference.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about Christianity.
Let's compare.
Let's compare. Why not? Like for like. Here I am. I'm talking about you're a Christian, yeah.
Christian, yeah.
100% guilty as charged. We're card-carrying members, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a few things in common.
You've got yes, yeah. Okay. So we're both Christians, right? So, but here's the thing. Now, what are the claims of Christianity? Can you tell me? Okay. Let's see how well you know your faith.
Yeah. Well,
Let's
the central
the duck's guts. Let's boil the Christianity down to
it's perhaps it boils down to a man called Jesus.
Yep.
And he claimed to be Son of God.
That's right.
And he died on the cross. Well,
Yep.
there were prophecies that he said he will die and he will come back again, and that's exactly what happened.
He died.
In the year
33.
33 AD. And that's the truth claim, and that's what we in Jerusalem, in Israel.
That's right.
Born in Bethlehem, which was prophesied.
That's right. So here we have historical claims,
and 500 people saw him.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So we have historical,
and the tomb is empty.
That's right. Okay, so very good, and that's a very good case for the resurrection. But put aside the resurrection, right?
Yeah.
The historical claims, as you've pointed out, I can summarize them into three: the deity of Christ, the death of Christ, and the resurrection of Christ. Right? You can't resurrect unless you die.
Yeah.
You can't die unless you were living in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there had to have been a man called Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah.
That lived in first century Judea. Okay. Notice in the first century. See, time.
Yes.
Century Judea, place.
Yeah.
Man called Jesus of Nazareth, right?
Yeah.
That was crucified by the Romans.
Yeah.
Thing that happened to him. He made disciples. And those disciples wrote the New Testament. Now we know through textual criticism, and again that can be another podcast if people want.
External sources.
We have a lot of evidence. We have nearly 30,000 manuscripts in various languages that show that the New Testament we have today is the New Testament written by the apostles, right? Whether people believe Jesus is God or not, no one disputes that he existed.
Yeah.
See? You and I, we can have a conversation with somebody about Christianity because our faith is based on history.
Yeah.
No one disputes the historicity of Jesus.
Yeah.
And no serious scholar, and I'll say that, no serious scholar disputes the fact that he was killed by the Romans. He was crucified by the Romans.
Yep.
Whether
Even secular
scholars.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Your Bartom and
everyone does. It's only your people who want to twist things, perhaps, I know the Ahmadiyas don't believe he died but they're in the minority, number one. Okay. No secular scholar, no serious. I've even got an article from the Journal of the American Medical Association that went through the details of the crucifixion.
Yeah.
We're talking about trained killers, the Romans.
Yeah.
Who were experts at what they did.
Yeah.
Right. So no one disputes that. Right. No one disputes that. We've got a historical foundation for our theological claims.
Yeah.
You see that? We're building a house, our theology.
Yeah.
We've got a very solid
foundation.
We've got a concrete slab to build it on. The question is, what kind of slab does Islam have?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't have a concrete slab, what did Jesus say about the person who built the house on the sand?
Yeah.
Is it going to stand?
It's not going to stand.
It's not going to stand. And my contention through this this podcast is to show that Islam is built on sand.
Yeah.
So you might be wanting to ask, so how do we test the historical claim?
Yep.
That will be for the next session.
Yep. We've run out of time. For now. But there's more to come.
There's more to come, And what I'll be talking about next is, all right, you might say, okay, Con, you've waxed eloquent about the need to look at historical claims. How do we assess? How do we assess them? Right. That's what we'll talk about next.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
It's been wonderful. That's great. It's good to have a conversation.
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And let's look forward to the next one.
And you can see we're you know, and I challenge anyone: are we talking about anything that's hateful? No, we're just we're talking about information. We're talking about facts.
Yeah.
We're not vilifying anybody. We're not.
Yeah, we love. That's a good thing about. I mean, as a Christian, you know, we don't hate. We shouldn't be hating anybody.
No,
you know,
no.
we love. I love my Muslim friends.
100%.
I love all of them. Yeah,
that's
so
right. And I would
it comes out of a place of love. Isn't it?
That's right. I would love nothing more than to see all of these, you know, Muslims come to Jesus.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of trouble in the world right now.
Yeah.
If Muslims came to Jesus, if Jews came to Jesus, if everybody came to Jesus, we wouldn't have this trouble.
Yeah. And at the time of recording of this podcast, we don't know what's happening in Iran.
No.
It's been the most tumultuous
If
5 weeks, you know.
If the Ayatollah and all the mullahs all became Christians, what kind of world would we have?
Yeah.
That's my challenge.
Yeah.
That's our challenge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wonderful.
Thanks.
That's it for now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Amen.